if I can write a book, you can too. Hey, I'm Lily. I'm an aspiring author. I'm currently working on my debut YA fantasy romance novel, and I'm editing the third draft. I want to share my story about how I got back into writing and why I'm writing a book, because I feel like I got inspired by watching other people write books, which showed me that I could too. So I want to kind of start from the beginning. As a kid, I loved writing. I thought it was super fun, but I saw it as a very fun pastime. I was like 7 or 8 years old. You know, as school happens, you kind of lose track of everything and you kind of think of more realistic things to do. But I've always loved writing. Like every time there was an assignment for creative writing in school, I would love it. It was something that really spoke to me, and it felt like something that I always was drawn to. But I think it didn't hit me until I was in college, and I was watching, I think I was on TikTok, and this girl came up on my For You page and was like, here's a really good book idea. And she said her book idea, and the whole comment section was like, I would totally read that. And I thought that was so cool, because how you could just come up with a book idea and just put it out into the world, and people will experience that. And I think with social media, it kind of gave me this new perspective on that. I was seeing writers and authors through their social media page, and I was seeing that it was possible and that these people were actually writing books and actually promoting them and gaining really big followings for it. But again, at this time, I was still deep into college. I wasn't really considering writing a book. I was like, oh, that'd be really cool. I opened up my computer and I started writing on Google Docs, and I had this idea for this sci-fi future dystopian book, and it was really cool, but I didn't know anything about writing a book. I knew nothing about story structure or grammar or pacing or prose or anything. I didn't know anything about writing a book legit. So I just started writing, and I got to about the 30% mark through, and then I was like, this book is going nowhere. I genuinely got so sidetracked because I was like, it wasn't even going anywhere. And so I kind of left that idea, but I never took it very seriously. I always had a love for writing. I think that was something that I was always drawn to, was creating in the written form. So I started this travel blog actually, and because I was like, oh, I love traveling and I love writing, so let me do a travel blog. And I did that for a little while, and I actually studied abroad. And I was like, let me bring this travel blog abroad so then I can start working on that. And I was so sure of this travel blog. I was like, this is the thing that is gonna get me creative. It's gonna be a future career. I was so confident in it. And then I remember I was abroad. I studied abroad in Korea, writing my travel blogs. And I was like, there was something that was missing. And I think there was again, this is nonfiction writing, not fiction writing. I wanted more of an outlet to write creatively and to write stories. When I was writing my travel blog, I was drawn to the stories of people abroad. So I would interview them and write their stories. And I was way more interested in the stories of people rather than tips and tricks about how to travel and actual travel content. And I think I noticed really soon that wasn't going to be effective, because there's a lot of SEO and a lot of different things in travel blogging that I wasn't aware of. But then I love storytelling, and I loved telling people stories. I was kind of in this up and down, I was kind of lost. I didn't know if I wanted to keep doing it. And then I forget the exact moment this happened, but I was abroad in South Korea, and I remember I got this random idea for a book. I was so excited. It was this idea for a fantasy romance novel, and I was like, yes, this is good. This is something I can work with. Until this day, I still don't remember exactly what sparked that. I think a lot of it was music, honestly. I just got back into reading, and I was like, wait, this is amazing. And I remember I would go to cafes. I completely abandoned the travel blog. I was like, because this is when I talk about, if you want to do something, don't feel like you have to do the more realistic thing. Because at the time, travel blogging sounded more realistic. It's a blog. I can get traction for the blog. I know how to do SEO and everything, marketing, digital marketing. And this idea of writing a book sounded so unrealistic to me. I was like, that doesn't make sense. But now, with my writing, content and sharing it online, I have way more engagement than I ever did posting about travel. So it's kind of interesting to see how things work out for you. And I went to cafes every single day, and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And but before I left, I had about 20 to 30,000 words like of this novel. I was like, this is great, like I got this. But at this time, I still didn't know a lot about writing. I didn't know anything about like the structure or the writing craft or like all of this stuff. I still felt like very much like an imposter. And I ended up scrapping that book and I went back to brainstorm and I spent a lot of time brainstorming. And then I tried to rewrite the same story, but like different. And I got to about like 10% through that one. And then I was like, this one's going nowhere. Like, I maybe like fantasy isn't my thing. Like I was thinking like maybe fantasy is too hard. There's too much world building, too much plot development. So I got home from Korea and I had this really good idea to write this like contemporary romance, like this contemporary like second chance romance. And I still like have that project somewhere, but I was writing it and it was going pretty well until I got to again about like the 30% mark and I was like, I missed my original story. And I think this was like a really big moment for me where I realized like sometimes when a story isn't working or you're feeling stuck in a story, it doesn't mean that you should abandon it. It means that you should rework it and keep going. If the story is meant to be, it's just gonna work and it's just gonna be easy to write. But I kept changing story ideas and then I realized like, oh, the original story was where my heart actually lied. So I went back and I scratched all the other projects. I went back to my original story and I just kept writing. And my draft was like horrendous. Like it was made no sense. It did not make like, there were so many plot holes. It was the craziest like draft ever. But I finished it. And I remember that feeling of finishing that draft. And I finished it actually right before I went back to college in the fall. And I was like, so I finished it in like a summer and I was so excited. I remember I wrote like 4,000 words a day. I would like do like 10-minute writing sprints and then like watch Love Island and then do like 10-minute writing sprints. Like it was so fun. And I remember I like got so into it and I was like, this is everything. But I remember at the time I was still thinking logic. I was like, oh, I need to be realistic. I'm a college student. Like there's a lot more jobs in like digital marketing and like blogging. Like it doesn't make sense to even like do this book. My heart always like felt strong about that project, but I kind of put it on the back burner because I was trying to find internships and trying to do the right responsible choice. Again, I found my way back to that book and I read it over and then I realized very quickly that I needed to rewrite the entire thing, which kind of became a pattern for me because I was more of a discovery writer. I started rewriting it and this was like the winter before my last semester of college and I was rewriting it. And at this point, I think around the beginning of like January 2024, I took my writing very seriously. I looked into like writing craft books and I was watching a lot more social media. I was watching people like me, like online, like YouTubers, TikTokers, anything from a writer, author, aspiring author, famous published author, like anyone, like all of the above. I was super inspired and I learned a lot. I was really, really into it. I started reading a lot more at this time. I started reading like a ton of books and like even in 2024, I've read probably like more books than I've ever read in my lifetime. Like if you compare it, just like how much I didn't read to now. And I started reading and I started getting really into like self-development and I was like, this is it. Like the end of college, like I'm just gonna go for it. Then again, I got caught up with like the logistics of college. I ended up getting an internship for blogging, which was really great because I thought maybe I want to go into freelance writing because I didn't really think that like being an author and writing a book was like ever like a legitimate choice. Like I kind of saw it as like this fun side project that I could work on that I really was passionate about, but I could never fully like put my all into it because it wasn't realistic. And I really hate saying that now because I feel like I've learned so much, but I remember this and I was at work and this girl was talking to me about my blog and like the freelancing that I was doing. And she was like, do you have social media for it? Like, do you have like Instagram? Do you have TikTok? Like you can get so much more traffic for your blog. And this was my travel blog. So this was back to this travel blog. At first I was really scared because I think one of the reasons why I wanted to blog was because there was more space between me and the social media where like I could write stuff and like kind of have my identity more hidden. But now that I'm making videos, it's like very obvious who I am and like I'm putting myself out there. And that was really, really scary in the beginning. I started posting about travel on TikTok and Instagram, and I didn't really have my face in a lot of the photos, and I kind of like wrote some stuff, and it got a little bit of traction, but like nothing really was happening. But I kind of got back into social media, and then I kind of had this random idea, and again, I don't remember exactly like what it was, but it was like this complete switch where like one day I just had this like idea. I was working on the second draft rewrite of my book, and I was like, okay, what if I document this process like I'm doing with my travel blog? And I was thinking, like, what if I just start filming myself writing, and then it's going to keep me accountable? And this is kind of like the beginning of like my whole like journey writing online. I'm just gonna like hold myself accountable, start a little series where I post once a day to like show my progress and show the journey. And immediately I remember within like a couple posts, I had like people commenting and people following me and people liking, like more engagement that I ever got with my travel stuff. I was like really like taken aback. I was like, wow, like this is speaking to people. And I had this realization that like this could be an actual thing. Like people actually write books, they actually have a following, they actually like sell their books, they live off of this. Like people are becoming writers with no experience. I started posting more on social media, and I was really taken aback with how amazing the community was. Like I was immediately welcomed in as someone just even starting and just writing a book. And I remember seeing so much support in my comment section and finding so many like-minded people. I still say to this day, like the writing community is what kept me going. And I think it's writing is a very like lonely project. Like you're just by yourself in your own head, like writing and writing. But seeing other people also on the pursuit of writing books and publishing was the coolest experience, because now I'm like, we're all in this together and we can all cheer each other on with that momentum and with the people watching, and knowing that I'm now inspiring other people to write, which also holds me accountable to continue writing. And I think that's one of the best things, because I was inspired to write by watching people online. So kind of contributing back to that cycle is really cool for me. I remember I finished my second draft rewrite like in a month because I was so excited with like this new writing community. And then I graduated and I worked more on my book. I edited it, I printed it out, all this stuff. And then I was like, I need to rewrite it a third time. So I rewrote it a third time. Now I'm at the point where I'm editing my third draft, where I'm going in on line level edits and I'm preparing for beta readers. I'm having alpha readers right now. It's a whole process. It's so exciting. And I think for me, like I have this goal to publish this book, get out in the world, and continue to write and write, because now that I see that people are doing this as a career, as a real serious passion, it just makes it so much more real for me. And that's why I wanted to share my story and share my journey, because if I can do it, you can do it. Just like how when I see other people do things, I think, wow, if they can do it, I can do it. Because I genuinely believe that we are all equally capable. We all have the potential to do these amazing things. And whenever I see other people doing stuff, I don't see it as competition. I see it as proof that you can do it as well, because there's infinite abundance with creation. So I think it's awesome. And I wanted to show that, like, me being so deep into this process of writing a book, like over a year later, like if I can do it, then you can too. If you ever had the inkling to write a book, if you think that you have this creative journey that you want to go on, if you have this path that you're feeling a pull to, just go for it and see what happens, and just keep going, because other people are doing amazing things, and that means you can too. I'm still learning, and it's okay to start messy and just go for it and see what happens. Thank you so much for watching. I love sharing my journey because hopefully you take something from this, and I really believe in you. Even just watching this video, that means that you have a desire and are capable, and happy writing.